It's a pleasure to be here because this is not an ordinary, let's say, cost action meeting. We are trying with our distinguished speakers to put the dimension on top of what is happening usually in the actions, although some actions, as you will see later in the program, already have from the start an international dimension. But global networking, as we say, is in the essence. Science doesn't stop at the border. COST is a European program, but of course our members are active beyond Europe. We have beyond our membership also active participants in the region around us. We call them the near neighbors, so it's the Northern African and the Eastern European, Far Eastern European side, let's say, Middle East also, that are involved. But anyone on this globe can participate in a cost action by principle. So that opens up also new insights and new opportunities. And Anna already mentioned that today we have very distinguished speakers who can actually tell you about the tangible progress made when it comes to international cooperation. We have Professor Krisi Laspidou, she's Action Chair. We met not too long ago, actually, indeed, outside of Europe. And we have Antonio Urquiza Herrera, if I pronounce your name correctly, with, by the way, a very interesting topic. It's about the heritage of, I would dare to say, the golden age of Islamic wisdom, arts, and culture, and how that has influenced, let's say, also the European and Mediterranean, let's say, cultures. So I think that's very much worth listening to. And of course, we are also very happy. I see already, Nicole, you are smiling. Nicole Abour from the Belmont Forum to share a little bit about the opportunities that she sees for international scientific cooperation. So from my side, and without further ado, I would like to wish you a very insightful, obviously, but also very enjoyable session hosted by my colleagues, Anna and Kata. And indeed, we hope that there is, let's say, also some interactive exchange between all the participants and the speakers here on the program. I wish you a very informative and fruitful session. Thank you so much.
So my role today is very technical. I'm policy officer at the Cost Association and dealing mainly with international collaboration. Also very warm welcome from me to you, and thank you for your interest of joining to this session, and also thank you for the organization from the Cost Academy and also for the availability of all of our speakers. Basically, when we speak about international cooperation in COST, this is a bit maybe different than in other contexts, because COST is already in itself international, if you wish, because COST is an intergovernmental organization, already having 43 countries on board as member countries with different colors shown on this map. But basically, when we speak about international cooperation, we speak about collaboration with countries that are beyond the borders of the COST member countries. This map trying to give you some color code for the different technical terms that we use for the countries, different group of countries that are collaborating with COST. And you can see that on this map, the COST member countries are colored in violet or mauve color. The so-called COST near neighbor countries that Ronald also mentioned are colored in green. There are 2 countries out of those that are currently under sanction due to political decisions of the European Union, which is Russia and Belarus. And there are all the rest of the countries of the world, which are colored orange on this map, that are so-called international partner countries or third states, as we call them in our technical jargon of everyday work. And why is it important? It's because when you are from a NNC or a near neighbor country, you have eligibility to receive funding for your activities in a cost action, based on the decision, of course, of the cost action management committee. And when you are a partner member, which at the moment there is only one partner member, which is South Africa, your participation is financed, or your participation is reimbursed following an application to a grant system that is provided by the South African authorities, the DSI, seed funding mechanism. And when you are from a COST international partner member, your participation is not eligible for participation costs are not eligible as per se for reimbursement, only in some limited cases, as you are an invited speaker or a trainer to a training school, or if you are organizing activities such as training schools or other networking activities in your territories. And for that, all of that, it goes without saying that in all cases, you have to be a duly registered and accepted participant affiliated to an institution that is participating in a cost action. And also, I think it's a very important element for the international scientific cooperation for cost is that to engage with the cost action is a multifaceted opportunity, that you can be a participant to a running action, you can be a secondary member of a network of proposers of a new cost action, and you can also be an expert that helps to that evaluates the submitted proposals or monitors the actions progress as they go by. So following this very short technical introduction, and to set the scene a little bit, how cost, what does it mean for cost when we spoke about international cooperation, I will get back the floor to Anna and also to speak to the cost action representatives here. Thank you very much.
So it's really exciting to speak to a lot of people about our action. As you understand, these cost actions are not subject specific, so the calls don't come out for a specific subject. And you know, me and my team as a chair picked that the nexus, the water, energy, food nexus, is a subject that really is worth going for this, for forming a network, since there is a lot of there are a lot of things that are at stake with the environment and with climate change, with sustainability issues, and nexus, bringing together water, energy, and food in the sense that you manage your resources in an integrated manner. It is a subject that we thought is worth exploring. So I will start, because I am not sure in the audience if we have people that understand the subject. I will also try to speak a little bit about what the nexus is and why it is important. Just a little information about our action. And I'm sorry, I have a little cold. Okay, we're now with over 300 members. The good thing about these actions is that you can join afterwards. So it's not something that, like the other projects, that when they start, the consortium is closed. New people come in, and we want more and more people to join. The goal here is to create this network of people that will be aware and will later on be the seeds, if you wish, to spread this word in their countries, in their settings, as academics, as policymakers. We want to raise awareness. So we want more people to come, and we're happy to have over 300 members. Many countries are being represented, as you can see on the map. There is still a few that are not, and maybe, I'm not sure if this is the latest map, because we keep adding people. 33 cost countries, 18 inclusive target countries, as Kata said before. We also have international organizations joining, 3 near neighboring countries, And we have representatives from China, from Australia, from Tunisia, and from the Republic of Tajikistan. So we try to have a global outreach, and I will say a little bit more why it is important to have a global outreach. Some of the issues you don't want to treat them at the local or at the regional level. They make so much more sense to go global and to try to establish this network that will go beyond borders. And this is a case for our action. So what it is we are dealing with at the center is this nexus. In a sense, it is the integrated management, and also in terms of the policies, an integrated assessment of the way we use our resources in order to lead to sustainability, to give value to the ecosystems, and to do this through systemic innovations. So the nexus is a lot about this systemic view. So you do not view things in isolation. You do not only want to focus, for example, on water. Say you do not want to focus only on protecting water, or say, for a good example is desalination. With desalination, this could be a solution, right? Desalination, because we are faced with water scarcity. One could say we have plenty of salty water, we have plenty of oceans and seas. Why don't we just move to desalination altogether? But desalination is very energy intensive. So if you try to find a solution in one resource, then you affect another. And when you go for an energy intensive solution, you use a lot of energy, which is usually up to now, most of it is produced by fossil fuels. So then you also have the greenhouse gas emissions, and these emissions are responsible for accentuating the climate change issue. So as you see, they are all linked, and food, of course, food is vital. Of course, we need to have food security, but in order to produce food, you need water, and in order to have clean water, you need probably to pump it from the ground, or you need to clean it. You need it to travel through your pipes. This means there is a lot of energy being required, and then there is a low carbon economy that we want to achieve. So as you see, they're all interlinked, and there is no point in focusing only in improving one technology. This is a little bit practices of the past. People focused on producing energy. Sure, we have coal, let's produce it. We have oil, let's produce it. Yes, but what does that do to your other resources? What does it do to the environment? The emissions or the water that is required? What does it do to your land use? Is it appropriate to produce food? All these are issues that we examine in our network. So our goal is resource efficiency, and our goal is resilience. So we want to produce systems, and I wanted to focus on systemic innovation. At the heart of this, you have the people. So this is a very, very, very people-centric, human-centric, and stakeholder-centric issue, because policies and decisions are made by people, and the technologies are always there. They never limit us. And I will also add that money doesn't limit us. Many times people speak, there is no money, there is no funding. Funding is there. The thing is how you use funding, where you choose to invest funding. And all these issues are associated with the decisions that people make. And those decisions are driven by interest, by conflict, by geopolitics. So it is a very complex system that you need to see it systemically. You cannot see it in isolation. And this is what we do. And this is at the heart of our international collaboration. There is no point in, I come from Greece, from the University of Thessaly. I did not introduce myself. So I'm a professor at the Civil Engineering Department at the University of Thessaly. So there's no point in improving things in Greece. because these problems that we are dealing with are of a global scale. Just one will not do it. We all need to decide and co-decide and co-create these new solutions that will lead to a sustainable tomorrow and to a resilient world. The word that we use a lot is resilience. We want our societies and our cities and our villages and to be resilient to the threats. My region, Thessaly, was very recently hit with horrendous floods. You know, the whole city was destroyed. Our university was completely, I mean, we start fresh now with new everything. Why? Because we have climate change and all these extreme events will become worse. So we need to act at the global and very systematic level. So here, just a couple of slides to show the interlinkage that we have all these sectors, but everyone acts in their own silo. So policy making right now is, you know, water, energy, food. Energy people care about the energy, and often, most of the times, they are competitive with the other sectors because they are going for the same funding, and they want to take the funding from energy, for example. In reality, water is the least money intensive, if you will say, sector, because it's relatively free in most places, or it's very cheap. Energy is the one usually that we compete with because they go for the most funding. And food, you know, it's so vital, but the different policies or these policy frameworks, like the CAP that we have in Europe, you know, they pass decisions that affect all sectors. So this is just to show that we all think in our own little silos, and this is something that we should not do, because if you look into this, look here some of the examples. Agriculture, which is which is the way to produce food. Agriculture uses 70% of global water withdrawal goes to agriculture. So see how highly these two are interlinked, food and water. Also, food and the supply chain uses 30% of global energy consumption. So energy is very much linked to food because, you know, there's the transport, there is the food processing, which is very energy intensive. And then another water energy, power plant cooling, 43% of total freshwater withdrawals. And I apologize, I don't know why my slides are like this. This should be the words. Something happened there. But most of the water goes to, a lot of the water goes to power plant cooling. So you cannot decide really, or you should not. People make such mistakes. They place their power plants in places where there is no fresh water because they are only thinking of the energy. They are not thinking of the water, and the water is there, but there is competition. Water also goes to food, water also goes to the cities, and water also goes to the other sectors. So there is no planning that is integrated so far. And on the other hand, as we go through time, we see that yeah, okay, I'm running out of time. So this is also to say that the water demands and is going to increase as we go into the future. The demands will increase in water, in energy, and in food. At the heart of what we do is the SDGs. We want to achieve the SDGs. These are the Sustainable Development Goals, and they are only achieved by global collaboration. These are made by the United Nations, and we work to make this happen. And the nexus is behind this, because in order to achieve these goals, some of them are even conflicting. You need to recognize the synergies and to go against the trade-offs. So you need to see which policies and which actions are conducive and work together with the others in order to achieve better results. So, and these, as I said, are at the United Nations level. So they are really being done at the global level. That's why it is important to collaborate. So our cost action wants to identify the cross-sectoral implications, where water, energy, food, land use, where all these interlink, and how to promote the decoupling of financial growth. Ideally, we want to keep growing. We want people to get richer, and we want the living conditions to be better also for the developing countries. We want it to increase, but we do not want to exhaust resources at the same time. We want to decouple. We want the growth to be independent of the use of resources. Why? Because resources are finite and we are running out, basically. There will not be enough. This is behind sustainability. So we do a lot of capacity building. We talk about these issues, we explore, we do models, we collect case studies, we collect projects. We will make this ambitious database that all Nexus case studies coming together to see what people have done, to collect success stories, to see what tools they use to analyze. This is a very complex system that takes a lot of modeling. Then we do a lot of the modeling. We use from serious games to virtual reality to all kinds of tools that are very innovative. And with international collaboration, we want to test the Nexus concept at different scales. We want to go international as well. We want to see what others are doing, say in the US, or what they are doing in other parts of the world, in order to achieve this, because this is not achieved at the national level or not even at the European level. This is only achieved at the global level. We want to bring the input from what is happening in the other countries and how we can achieve this together in a unified manner. So this is what we have done. We work together with AccelNet project called Sustain Food, and this is coordinated by Penn State in the US. The funding comes from NSF, and they have devised a network of networks. So, and they also have an African network, they have a US network, and they have us as a European network. So all this brings the global perspective as much as possible. And I keep telling them that we should also find ways to add Asia as well, and in Australia, and, you know, really have representatives from all around the world. This is just an example of the activities we do together. We have I know I'm out of time. We have a collaborative school that we are that is organized this summer, that we will try to collaborative learning school, that we will try to be together with the Africans and the Americans and the Europeans, all of us together, learning and sharing and bringing our own perspective in order to reach conclusions and agreement at a more global level, taking into account the diversity, because the problems are very diverse around the world. And yeah, this is where I finish my action. Some information about me. Please, we have 118 people here. Please follow our action. We are on Twitter or X, LinkedIn. We are also on Instagram, and so you can learn, because this is all about people becoming engaged and thinking about these issues, and not thinking that it's something that happens elsewhere. It concerns you as well. Okay, I hope this was good enough.
Thank you very much for the invitation, for taking part in this webinar, which I find most interesting, because for us, having this collaboration with countries that didn't belong to the full membership of COAST has been something very important to our action, and one of the probably best outcomes we had had. No? You can see in this map the 4 near neighbor countries that have been taking part of the action from the very beginning. There were people from these countries who were part of the initial application that we made for the action. So it was something that was in the center of our action before we started working. Even when we were just planning and designing the activities and the topics that we wanted to work on. Here you can see the whole map of the countries that were involved, either in the application, or countries that have joined us when we were running. We had 35 countries involved in the action. Well, one thing which is really important is that this action is finished. We just finished on September the 4th. Well, my life and the life of the whole core group has changed a lot after that, and but I can say that we are starting to miss what we had before, no? Because it was a great experience that we have throughout 4 years and a half. As Anna has told you before, and as you can see in the title of the action, this action has a topic grounded on humanities. Maybe half of the participants were historians, around a third were art historians. I am myself an art historian. I am professor of art history at the UNED, which is a distance learning university in Spain. And we also had people coming from the fields of theology, of anthropology, and many of them from literature and linguistics. And the idea in the topic in our action is the analysis of the Islamic legacy in late medieval and early modern Europe. Our point of departure was the acknowledgement that there were different academic traditions dealing with the Islamic legacy in Europe. There are three main points for that Islamic legacy. One is the Iberian Peninsula, the other one is the Balkans, and the other one is Italy, southern Italy, and the center of the Mediterranean. And we were noticing that historians in the Iberian Peninsula didn't know too much about the Balkans. Historians in the Balkans didn't know too much about the Iberian Peninsula, and historians in Italy were also a bit not really connected to those two traditions. So we thought that creating a discussion platform where we could share knowledge, and where we could work on common research questions, and we could share the point of views and the outcomes, and we were able to construct a common discourse on these common research questions, was something that could be of some benefit to many people around the continent. So the idea of scientific collaboration was something very much in the center of this action from the very beginning. And of course, that implied having a very strong connection between different parts of Europe, mostly this Iberian Peninsula, Central Eastern Europe connection that didn't exist before, but also that we had to pay a lot of attention to what was going on the other side of the Mediterranean. We have had a lot of Turkish participants, but that doesn't mean going beyond the coast borders, because Turkey is a full member. But we also have had from the very beginning the participation of many researchers coming from Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, and Egypt. And they were, as I said before, in the initial planning of the activities. They were taking part in the design of the application, and also once we started working, they also were involved in the deployment of the activities. We have 3 working groups in the actions. You can see here the working group 1 on the imaginary construction of the other, the working group 2 on migration and identity, national identities, local identities, religious identities, and the working group 3 on borders, beyond borders. No, here are the topics that we have discussed. In the first one, we have work on anthropology and otherness. We have work in the relationships between texts and images, and we have work on material culture. On the working group 2, we have worked on how the migration was related to different categories of peoples, from soldiers to renegades, and how the permeability worked in those different groups. We have worked on the relationship between trade and migration, and we have also worked on how the movement of writings was interconnected with the creation of identities and the migration of people. And in the third working group, we have worked on the concept of borders. How could we understand the borders in the late medieval and early modern times, the legal implications of that, and the permeability of borders, the difference between borders and frontiers, and how it could be tackled from the humanities, and also the representation of borders. And in that sense, it was important that we had a really big group of art historians working in the action. So as you can see, all these topics and all these discussion fields were very much connected with the concept of territoriality, the concept of migration and movement of people, and the concept of otherness and alterity. And a fourth idea also in the action has been the idea of narratives. We were not only analyzing how things were in the late medieval and early modern times, what did happen at that time, but how these events helped creating a certain narrative toward the past that has been under a construction process for centuries, and how it is still running nowadays. So how our current narratives on the Islamic legacy in Europe are intertwined with the historical narratives and the historical events. And of course, that needed this first pan-European discussion, and then also a discussion with scholars coming from the countries, as I said, in the other shores of the Mediterranean. We have had different activities where we were fostering this discussion. We have many meetings, and I only wanted to remark 3 of them, one in Amsterdam, Paris, and Istanbul, where we had a very strong participation of people coming from near neighboring countries. And also, we had people coming to this this meeting coming from the United States. That was also very common. But I wanted to stress today the presentation on the training schools, which have been, and particularly one of them, the activities where we had the strongest involvement of people coming from non-member countries. We have these 3 training schools. The first of them was in January 2020 in Granada and Cordoba in Spain. That was a training school focused on heritage in the sense of architecture. We have this other training school in 2022 in June in Tunis on late medieval and early modern migrations and identity spaces in the Mediterranean. I will talk a bit more about that later. And we recently had this training school in 2023 in June in Stockholm on the connections between Northern Europe and Islam. As we have been working on borders, we wanted to see how was this contact with coming from regions of Europe which did not have a direct contact with Islamic territories at that time. In those training schools in Granada and Cordoba and Stockholm, we had participants coming from near neighbor countries, particularly people from Egypt who joined the training program in Spain and Stockholm. But in that training school, in Tunis, it was another kind of experience because we were moving the construction to a near neighbor country to make a reflection on how the migration of people was connected to the creation of identities. which is something that is very much connected to the current situation of Europe, but is something that we wanted to ground on historical roots. And we have been taking care throughout the whole action. We have been taking care that the organization of all the activities was always a organization sharing knowledge and people coming from different parts of the continent. Most of our activities have been co-organized from people coming from different corners of Europe and the Mediterranean. And in that particular training school, which was organized in Tunisia, we had 4 co-organizers, 2 of them coming from Tunisia, 1 coming from the Netherlands, and another one coming from Spain. Because we have always been thinking that that was the correct way of putting together these different point of views and working on these common research questions. In Tunisia, we had a panel of trainers coming from both Tunisia and Europe, and we have also a group of trainees coming from Europe and coming from Tunisia and coming also from the United States, who wanted to join the activities. What we did there was having some academic sessions where we discussed the PhD projects from the trainees. They had to make a presentation, which was followed by a discussion coming from the trainers. And we also had some field work in the National Archives of Tunisia. You can see there, here are some of the pictures of the activities. And also we went to Testour, which is a village 100 kilometers away from Tunis, which was a place where many of the Morisco, these Muslims, converted to Christianity in Spain in the 16th century and expelled from Spain at the beginning of the 17th century. Many of them took refuge there, and it was an experience of a city or a town which was modeled after the migration of Islamic people coming from Europe to the north of Africa after an expulsion. And we had an academic session there, and we had a field visit to some monuments there as well. We also had some session where we took a connection with an American university who has a center in Tunisia, where there are Tunisian students and American students, and we had a common session with them upon the discussion of a documentary on that expulsion of the migrants, of the Morisco migrants. And it was a very fulfilling activity because for us, it was one of the moments where we had the feeling and we understood that all the work we were putting on that cost action was taking shape and was very rewarding. We really could see how the research of the trainees was getting different points of view and how they were enriching the angles that they were tackling in their research. And one very important thing is that from these 3 training schools, and particularly from this one, there have started to be a collaboration between them. We can say that there is a researchers community that has been formed after these training schools, and particularly after this training school. And some of the trainees there have started to work on papers together. Some of them have collaborated also in other activities of the action. Some of them have also organized new activities for the action, people who were involved in these training schools. No? And for us, it also has been very important that the idea of moving the action to this near neighbor country was something that was very much related. It was in the nature of the topic we were dealing with, but also that we thought that it could be something useful to foster scientific collaboration and the development of shared skills for them and for us. And the feeling that we had after the school was that it really worked in that way. Also, we have had the involvement of participants coming from non-member countries in other activities of the action. This action has stressed a lot dissemination. We have prepared several TV documentaries, and also we have prepared a massive online open course, which is now on the teaching period, and it's gonna have another teaching period next year, and we hope that in the years after that, where we have had, I think that's like something like 300 or 400 students coming from different parts of not only Europe, but also North of Africa. And for that, we have had participants coming from near neighbor countries in the teaching staff of the massive online open course, and also in the interviews that we made for the documentary. We have had some recording meetings in different parts of Europe and the Mediterranean, and we had one of them in Tunis at the same time that we were working on the training school. No? And here we can see the photographs of the recording, and we can see also on this big photo on the left, that was one of the best moments in the recordings and also in the training school. We recorded a conversation between a Tunisian scholar and a Spanish scholar talking about the different perspective in their research. You know? And this is a material that has been used on the massive online open course. Also, we have had the participation of different scholars coming from the near neighbor countries, and some of the dissemination publications of action, particularly in these two, one on the Morisco diaspora and Morisco networks, which was connected to the meeting we had in Amsterdam, and also in that final book of the action, Late Medieval and Early Modern Narratives of Islam Across Europe, a Connected Medioeval. This book in particular has been a very interesting outcome of the action. It has 12 chapters, and each of the 12 chapters has been written in collaboration with 2, 3, or 4 different authors coming from different parts of Europe and the Mediterranean. So we could find, for instance, a chapter where, and I'm thinking particularly one of them, when there is an author coming from Tunisia, an author coming from Italy, and an author coming from Sweden. And the 3 of them, some of them knew them before the action, others didn't know before the action, others didn't even know each other before we were starting to work on the book, and they have to agree on a common text on a common research question. No? And that has been a very complicated activity, but a very rewarding one, and an activity where we really could find this idea of collaborative work between different parts of Europe and the Mediterranean. And I wanted also to put on the table a final comment on how to tackle international scientific cooperation. As I said before, for hours in ISLE, the topic has been something where we naturally had to tackle this scientific cooperation beyond cost full membership. But I think that it's something that in any other topic or most topics can be done. And in our experience, the most important thing here was the identification of research groups, of people who were willing to get some involvement in the actions, who were willing to cooperate, and who were willing also to organize things. No? And once we identified those people, and those people were in the action from the very beginning, it was very easy to devise the activities where we could collaborate. Of course, and that had happened not only with the near neighbor countries, but also with full member countries. The involvement of the people is something that you cannot always take for granted. There are people who at the beginning were very much involved, but in 4 years, sometimes there are professional or personal circumstances that come and sometimes prevent people from having the involvement they wanted to have. But in most cases, we found very committed people, no? And that this has worked very, very smoothly. So that's all from my side, and thanks again for the opportunity of sharing our experience here.
Thank you to my wonderful co-panelists. I have learned a lot about some fantastic research. It looks like you have been up to quite a few things, and hopefully what I'm here to do today is not only speak to the audience about sort of the Belmont Forum and how you could use it as a tool to basically get research funding for some of these cost actions, but also how you can think about those cost actions as I mean that's the goal is to think about them as a way to develop projects, multilateral projects, and bring people together in order to apply for international funding. So as was mentioned, my name is Nicole Arbour. I'm the Executive Director of the Belmont Forum. And the Belmont Forum at its core is an international group of funders that comes together to fund multilateral projects, but not only multilateral projects, multilateral transdisciplinary projects. And what we mean when we say transdisciplinary is that the mission of the Belmont Forum is not to just fund any research, it is to fund societally relevant global environmental change research, which is actually a fairly big box. You can put a lot of things in there. In fact, we've funded everything from freshwater security. Last year, we did a call on migration and mobility. And this year, we have a call that just closed, I think, on climate and cultural heritage. So you can see that there's quite a wide range of things that fit in there. And so the Belmont Forum came together basically on the principle that, as many of you, if you're here talking about international science, know, money does not cross borders very easily. I think within Europe itself, it's a little bit easier, but it's not ever a very easy prospect. And so the Belmont Forum founders came together under the principle that there needed to be a mechanism to help support the development of international projects in the global environmental change space, but that was flexible enough to allow funders to work within their existing policy structures. So what does that mean exactly? It means that when funders come together to build a multilateral funding call under the Belmont Forum tool, if you will, process, they fund who they can fund. They fund what they can fund. But what this allows them to do is to come together under a common process through a joint through a single point of entry and a joint review process. And it does this across the entire globe. So basically any funder can participate in a funding call. And this allows us to build international funding projects. So just to give you an example, if we had a funding call that included the NSF in the US, that included ANR in France, that included NSFC in China, and others, but let's just use those as an example. The US funder would fund, likely, US researchers, the Chinese funder would fund Chinese researchers, and the French funder would fund French researchers, but allow them all to come together under the same project. So you're putting together a proposal for one project, and everyone gets funding from their respective institutions. And this is not a straightforward process, but what it does do is it does allow people to come together and build really cool international projects. And if you don't believe me, I'm going to put a link in the chat. You can go through the Belmont Forum website. There's a lot of really wonderful work there. I'm sure no one is surprised. I think there's a lot of researchers in the audience. And so in that context, what kind of projects are funded through Belmont Forum processes? Well, Belmont Forum funds multilateral funding with multilateral projects, which means at a minimum, there needs to be 3 countries that are involved in this project. And they should be funded by 3 different funders on our list of funders. In addition to that, there needs to be social scientists, natural scientists, and stakeholders involved. And stakeholders is really a very big word in this case. It could include SMEs, it can include politicians, it can include indigenous communities, it can include local communities or NGOs. But the idea is really the co-creation of a project framed from the beginning in the problem case, in the space where the challenge is happening, and that the co-creation goes throughout the life cycle of the project, all the way to the end where the deliverables are shared equitably between all partners. This is not easy. We don't ask anybody to do anything easy, but as I tell people a lot, anything worth doing is very rarely terribly easy. And I think I'm probably talking to a group of people who know that from experience. And so the Belmont Forum is one of those unique mechanisms that does allow the creation of multilateral funding projects on a consistent basis. And we have a 10-year, we've had a 10-year review that showed that the Belmont Forum does have lots of, has been very successful, but in the recent years, one of the things, as I came in only about 2 years ago, that came out of that report was, we're doing a lot of wonderful work, but we need to also think about, if we're working in the global environmental change space, that you can't work legitimately in a global environmental change space without including all of those who are also being most impacted. And so what we have been doing over the last few years as well is trying to ensure that researchers from least developed or low and middle income countries are also empowered to not only participate in projects, but lead projects, that we find funding to support those researchers. And so we are working to be as inclusive and as global as possible. I know I only had 5 minutes, so I don't want to spend too much time, but there is a lot more information on the website, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, but I would encourage you to think about when you're developing, not only in the cost networks that already exist, because there are constantly collaborative research actions, which is our word for multilateral funding calls, that are constantly coming out. So in this year, we had climate and cultural heritage, which I mentioned, and climate, environment, and health. But next year, there will be likely, we're anticipating one on the Africa region and one looking at Amazon and tropical forests. And if you go to our website, you can see all the different calls that are in development. And we encourage you also to help us scope those out and participate, because it is community developed. We do frame our calls in the needs of the community, and that is part of the process. And we would love to have cost network members helping us to understand what the real challenges are in the spaces that we're scoping. So thank you very much. And I'm just going to jump in and answer that question, that how long does a Belmont Forum project last? 3 to 4 years is the average. So 3 to 4 years on average, a Belmont Forum call lasts, but it really depends on which funders come to a Belmont Forum call. Each call is slightly different and includes slightly different funders.
I mean, if I can speak, I would say it's very well worth it. It makes it, I mean, already cost is a unique experience, but this makes it even a greater one for my, I say my students, for all the young people to get the opportunity to see also, what is happening, say, in the US or in Africa. And some of them maybe even travel, but just to come in contact with professors and people from outside our norm is really huge. So I think it is very well worth it. It requires some more work, but personally I become optimistic that maybe something there will be more of this in the future. So maybe there will be more, more money or more opportunities in that direction. I would recommend definitely for people to search for such opportunities and collaborations. It's worth it.
Yeah, and I wanted to remark the fact that it is a two-way path, that this people from the coast full membership countries going to other countries, and people from there coming also to our activities. So we have to think on this collaboration on the two different ways that it has. And that's because sometimes maybe you can say, okay, I am not going to find people beyond this area who's maybe working on that topic that I could enrich in what I am doing, but maybe there are people who's interested in what you are doing, and there's people who can come and collaborate with you. So it's important to consider the two different ways of it.